Okay. Yeah, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself here, how you got into acting and and everything of that nature?
I was born in California, but I grew up in the Minneapolis area, and I came out to California about the mid '80s. I was living near the beach in Manhattan Beach, but I wanted to get involved in the business because when I was a kid, I said that's what I wanted to do, but it's kind of like my whole family laughed at me. So, in essence, it's funny how people start. In my way, I did the wrong way in the regard of doing a lot of extra work, like moonlighting and Cagney and Lacey and just a ton of other shows. Ken Wall had a show called Wise Guy, and just like revolving and just going around and doing this extra work for $35 a day. But I didn't hang out in the green room. I didn't hang out with all the other sad sacks. I kind of was watching what was going on, and then was a rag sheet once a week called Dramalog. And Dramalog was it was a lot of advertisements for actors to buy headshots and this or that, or it was really selling things to actors. But also there was always casting notices in them, non-union specifically, some union. And back then it was very difficult to get in the union, so that was my main thrust back when I was doing extra work, and then doing high-end extra work, meaning like $90 or $100 a day, and on better shows like Dynasty in Dallas and these shows. I got a break doing a radio commercial, and then I was able to get into edit my time and got into SAG. But that's how, when you get into the business, it's they always say, well, don't do extra work, don't do that crap because it'll hurt you. You can't, you'll be known for that, and they won't, you'll not be taken seriously. It's not a serious way, but you have to pay the bills. And that's how I got Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was that Dramalog sheet that I would get every week, and there was all it said is an untitled horror film, casting for untitled horror film in Burbank. And I was with a friend of mine when I saw the ad, and he converted actors' work onto videotapes. Back then they didn't have discs, but so I was over at his place getting some of my work done, to transfer together so I could have a demo reel. Mm-hmm. And I saw this untitled horror film in Burbank, and I went there, and it was really, they were just casting for the very ancillary jobs that you would, all the little cop roles in that movie. I think I was reading for cop number 5 or something, and it was that they already had the lead locked down, and they already had all the major principal parts done. They were just fishing around for the security cop that Kenny McCabe did, the Rent-A-Cop, the Barney Fife role, and they were doing that kind of secondary and roles. So I just read for that one of those, and I was like, oh geez, what a waste. But that's the way they do it. They're not really, they've got usually all the leads and primaries locked down when they put these kind of ad out, just to get a pool of talent to sift through. So I said when I left, who's got the lead? And Lee Harry, who wrote all the part 2 dialogue, Lee said, oh, we've got that locked up. And so they just kind of dismissed me. Yeah, well, we got this. And I said, well, thank you. And I left. They must have talked, they had all this videotape, but they must have talked to Larry Applebaum, who was the executive producer on this, that the folks from Silent Night, Deadly Night went to Larry he had an editing shop where Lee and Joe worked. They were editors, but the owner of the rights of part 1 one that wanted it to be recut and sent out there had talked to Larry Applebaum, and Larry had seen some of these auditions, and Larry's the one that said, "Well, what about this kid that asked about the lead?" And they said, "Well, we've got this locked up, Larry." But he said, "Hey, this kid's, he looks like an older version of the little boy, the little brother, and he looks like he can lift the house, and why aren't you look?" And so what Lee and Joe really did not want me, and it wasn't anything against me. They just when you got your heart set on somebody, you're not looking elsewhere. So
right.
But Lee did call me, and I was living in a really old house with an old rotary phone, a little dial phone, and it rang one day, and it's funny. You may have seen these in movies or something. I had an old, huge box. It was an answering machine that was like dual cassette deck answering machine, and this old black rotary phone, probably from the 40s or 50s, and that was my setup. That was my whatever, my iPhone. But yeah, I get around this old phone. Lee calls and says, "Hey, this is Lee Harry. I saw you the other day," and so, long story short, I got called back in. He didn't say. He said, "Eric, we want you to read for this role," but he didn't say what it was. I figured it was cop number 5, right, or equivalent.
Yeah.
So I went back down to Burbank and went in, and they videotaped a lot of this, and they had me read some stuff I didn't even know what it was. It could have been some Caldwell part of that part 2, or I was unclear, but I just played it real cool, and I wasn't animated, or I wasn't chewing the scenery. And I left again, and then Lee called me back the next day and said, "Eric, we want you for the lead on this thing, and we're shooting Tuesday." I remember that. It was like a Thursday. It was late in the week, and they called me about shooting early in the next week, and on, and "Oh, there's a girl we want you to get together with. She was wardrobe." This is backstory, but it is funny. We went to Kmart and got this ratty sweater in the blue light bin. The light was flashing. We went over there. We got this ratty acrylic sweater and these pull-on shoes, the black shoes, and jeans. And also they got a denim shirt for me to wear in the institution part of the movie. So yeah, that was my wardrobe. And Kmart.
When did you find out it was Silent Night, Deadly Night 2? When did they kind of reveal that to you?
It's funny because they said, "Well, this is where we're adding footage to an original movie, everything you know." But I didn't know the first one. I didn't know it got pulled. They said, "Well, we had some trouble with the first one," and they kind of let me know that it got pulled off the theater after a week, and but I never saw it. And not only did I not see it, they didn't elaborate on what it was about. They just said it's very dark and we want to lighten this up. And when I did come back, when they said, "We want you for this, we want for the lead," I did go back in and talk to them, and Lee and Joe, they were basically acting out all the scenes that it's fun. The scenes that they wrote, I know a lot of the movie, a lot of what I did, it was the second half of the entire movie, but a lot of those little scenes that they wrote are, there's, I guess, the VA hospital, the sanitarium part of it, and then they go forward, and it was way out of context. They just had a scene here and a scene there. So what Joe and Lee wanted to do is they were reading and acting out the various scenes that they wrote that they wanted to add into the movie, and they were laughing the whole time and smiling, and they were just enjoying the dialogue they wrote. And I got this impression they wanted to lighten it up and have a comical take on it. So when this movie was 5 days, I think $1,500, and it was, the first day was light, and the other few of those days were 18-hour days. going into this, I said, oh, this is nice, great, not what I want to do. I didn't take it all that seriously. I did have a lot of I didn't have an ego. I never did, but I did have a lot of self-assurance, I guess. I felt good about, myself, and I wasn't shy, and that's probably why I got the gig. And then when I got the work, I I think that the role that I created, that's funny. Today we look at it and everyone enjoys it, but it wasn't. It was way over the top, to say the least. But there was a lot of fun stuff in it, and I look at it now. If I can divest myself of that, I'm looking at myself. It's kind of fun. It's a fun movie. But
now, in my research on this, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were like conflicting ways that you were told to play the character, right? There, you were getting from one end, to play him like cool, calm, cold as ice, and then from one end, go as over the top as he can, like really just, go for it all. So were you getting like two different takes on how to play the character?
You're better than 50% right. Lee was so busy with directing it and making. He worked with Harvey Jenkins, which was a DP. Harvey was really good. He was probably 60 or 65 then, and he had done a lot of B-grade movies in the 80s. He just real professional. And Harvey and Lee were working together, setting up the shot, the lighting, and this and that. And Lee was wearing so many hats that he never talked about what I was doing. Joe was an editor, as I said. Joe Earl was in the corner, always saying, Eric, you got to give me more and more. I always felt he was there. There was a character named Captain Queeg, with the, kind of rolling around, balls in his hand, and saying, more. But that's how it went. Lee didn't say a word, but Joe was in the corner, kind of, and I'm not blaming anybody. It was whatever came of it was my doing. We didn't have any playback on video, or any video playback, I should say, because they were using 35mm film, but there wasn't any playback, and they had opportunity to have that. They just, for them, they were shooting it and looking at the dailies that night real late. They would literally take the film and send it off to get it processed, and they would look at their work at night. No matter how late, they would get it done and play it and look at it, just in case they needed to shoot something again. But there was generally one. Joe was kind of the cheerleader on the side. You're right. The research on it, you're correct. It was I wasn't getting much from Lee, but I was getting a whole shitload from Joe. But Joe was always letting me know in certain ways, kind of like digs, that what the other guy was doing. I remember at one time, it was the big day, the big shooting day of strangling Liz and exploding Chip's head and Rent-A-Cop and Garbage Day in the car and the stunt and all of that. Basically 3/4 of the movie was one day, and that was the day I was driving in. It was in Pasadena or Sierra Madre, and I had said, "If that fucker brings that other guy up to me again today and walk," I was, and it's no lie, I was just that pissed. So I had a really cool Mustang, and I was just ramming it through the gears, and it was a 65 fastback, and I was really driving all the way up there. I'm like, I was livid because I hadn't had any sleep, and I just didn't want to hear about the other guy again. It's kind of like, you're married, but your wife reminds you of the boyfriend she had before you were married.
Yeah.
It was right on a couple of scenes where he brought up, like, Eric, that wasn't very good, and I said, I know, let's do it again. And it was just, there was so much going on with a lot of commotion, and I wasn't really connected up to what I should have been doing at the moment. And Joe would point it out, and I'd say, but we didn't get to do a second take. And but you're right. It was really kind of a brutal 5 days, but I was up for it. It wasn't killing me. I still had energy. It's just that the direction I was getting wasn't from the director. But again, it's on me, so whatever came to be of it, It's my doing. So I personally don't like so much of what I did, other than to say it's so over the top, it's funny, but it you could say it's just really awful. And anyhow,